I want to be correct, and if I'm not correct, I'll say it. Every first team rep in practice was Jalen Hurts, and the Eagles obviously place far more importance on practice for some reason than actual preseason games. Now,
when you called the Eagles a winner in all four of their joint practices, because you were not alone. Every other Eagle beat writer,
world champions.
They're not the world champions of
Why
that.
Not?
That truly is too
them.
small a universe to call yourself the world champion if you won 4 preseason practices. That is a little braggadocious and will not be accepted.
I'm accepting
there isn't even a score. But I heard they had a Jet scoreboard up there.
Yes.
Apparently, no one was actually keeping score. You can see the scoreboard, but they didn't actually put points up for passes defended and quarterbacks touched and whatever else, which would have helped you decide. It's very subjective as to who won the practice. Why do you say the Eagles won the last 2 days of practice against them?
Well, they dominated. I mean, it wasn't close. It wasn't like we were debating. We had to get together. I mean, if you watch the practices, the Eagles clearly dominated in team drills. And that's all you're really looking at. I mean, one-on-one drills are designed. We always say they're designed, defensive line, offensive line. It's a little bit easier for the defensive line. Certainly one-on-ones between receivers and defensive backs. You're supposed to win those as receivers. If you don't, there's more of an issue. In the team drills, the Eagles just dominated. Day one, I think, was a little bit more dominant than day two, especially defensively. I think the Jets at least got a little bit better offensively. And then they closed essentially the practice with this sort of team environment with all the teams gathered around. They worked through situations, and the Eagles scored on both of their opportunities. The Jets didn't. I mean, they just won. But what does it matter? It doesn't matter, to be honest. And I put it out there on Twitter because I like to tweet people occasionally. And it's interesting because you have this dichotomy of people are so excited. This is so meaningful. And then you have the other, how stupid is this? And I think you're serious when I say joint practice world champions. In case anybody's out there, I'm not serious. It's just a bit of a joke, but people take it really seriously. I don't know what Robert Saleh is trying to accomplish. I don't cover the Jets all the time. And he might not take it as seriously as Nick Sirianni. He might take the game more seriously. I don't know. All coaches are different. What I do know, though, on those particular days in Florham Park, New Jersey, the Eagles were better than the Jets. What does it mean? I don't think it means all that much, except it's better than being worse, I would imagine. So, especially when you're the Eagles and you're coming off 35-0 preseason loss, you're coming off 52-0 in the last 6 preseason quarterbacks. It's nice to get a little confidence back, I guess, is the most positive part of it.
Let's talk about the guy who will make the offense go this year. That's Jalen Hurts. Who, oh, by the way, Nick Sirianni still has not named his starting quarterback. Again, this is something that's probably woefully overstated because we all know it's going to be Jalen Hurts. No. He just hasn't formally said so. That you guys try and pry it out of him every day.
Stop asking the question. It's so we're officially done the training camp portion of the summer, at least as far as the media goes. So for people that don't understand, yesterday was the last practice that we could watch in its entirety. Moving forward, all we can watch is individual drills and stretching and things like that. And then they kick us out of practice because there's too many important state secrets going on. So this is the last, that was the last practice of the summer we got to see in its entirety. So through those 17 practices, I've said it before on the show, now it's official. Didn't take off a first team rep to tie a shoe for a bathroom break, for a wardrobe malfunction, maybe the helmet couldn't snap, nothing. Took every single first team snap, and I was there for every single one of them, and he took every single one of them So we just stopped asking because it's silly. It's interesting. He got asked about Andre Dillard, Jordan Mailata. He wouldn't even admit that. He got as close as humanly possible. He said, well, you guys see who we have on the first team. That's who we consider the starters. And then he said, but it's not over yet. And maybe Andre Dillard. I don't know. I did see Joe Banner put out on Twitter the other day, you kind of lose credibility in the locker room. I think that's overstated because I think the locker room knows who the starters are. I think you do lose credibility in the public's eyes when you won't admit the obvious. I will say that.
Well, you were right about everything you said about Jalen Hurts, except for one thing. They kind of had a preseason game last week against the Patriots. You were talking purely about practice. They did actually play a preseason game. And again, it comes down to how you look at it. An actual game with referees and fans in the stands would mean to me a little bit more than any practice joint or otherwise. And he did kind of miss that game with a stomach issue. So it isn't like he's taking every first team rep. They actually had a game in which he didn't take the first team rep.
Practice, I said all the practice reps on the first team. All the practice. This is my same world champion, Super Bowl champions. I want to be correct. And if I'm not correct, I'll say it. Every first team rep in practice was Jalen Hurts. And the Eagles obviously place far more importance on practice for some reason than actual preseason games. Now that I disagree with. Now he got sick before last week's game, although he did say yesterday, that was the day before, that he would have played if it was a regular season game. So the Eagles were just being extra cautious. And you and I have talked about this when I was on as a guest. And look, I don't agree with it. I get the cost benefit analysis, but you have a young player who needs reps. I think he needs reps in a live environment. Could he get hurt? Of course, anybody can get hurt playing football, but I don't know how you legislate that. I say it all the time. To me, it's more important to be prepared. You can't go through life. You can't go through professional football worrying about if people get injured. You can't operate that way. And it seems to me the Eagles are operating that way, and that's an organizational decision. And you can read that how you want. That's not a head coaching decision.
And, oh, by the way, John McMullen, Jody McDonald, every other media member, and every Philadelphia Eagle fan should see how they come out of game number one. They're gonna play 4 quarters of football, 60 minutes, and somebody's going to score more points, either the Eagles or the Falcons. But the other scoreboard that I'm going to have my eye on is how many Eagles come out of that first game injured. Because if they all come out of it 100% healthy, I'm going to have to go back and go, well, maybe they handled the preseason right, where they kept most of their star players in basic bubble wrap and didn't push them and didn't worry about number of reps like McDonald and McMullen said they should have. If they come out of the first game, and then we'll look at the second game, once we get about a quarter of the way into the season, then I think you have to give up the ship and say how you prepped in the preseason isn't going to dictate how you're going to be injured or not injured going forward. But for the first 3 or 4 weeks, absolutely. Because if they keep getting injured, we're going to say, well, maybe getting in a little bit better condition, maybe being a little bit better repped, maybe getting a little bit more practice against opposition could have actually helped from preventing injuries.
Well, I will say we've been through training camp. There were plenty of injuries. I mean, usually when the Eagles would give us the participation report, I couldn't fit it in one tweet because there were too many names on it. So there are plenty of guys getting injured. Now, the positive part, there hasn't been a ton of serious injuries. Tyree Jackson, probably the most serious. And that was certainly on the field. He was making a catch and he landed on his back and he fractured a bone in his back. Look, I mean, football's a tough sport. You're going to get hurt. 100% injury likeliness if you play the sport long enough. To me, it comes down to, okay, I get it from a veteran's perspective because they don't need the reps. They don't need the reps. They've done it enough to where they're going to understand how to go. And especially if you trust people from a conditioning standpoint, you can feel pretty comfortable that, insert the name Fletcher Cox, Lane Johnson, et cetera, they don't need a ton of reps. I think we can all agree on that. When it comes to young players, I mean, they need to be out there. I think you saw it. You know, it was interesting to me with the young receivers, and everybody's hyped up with the young receivers, and it certainly looks like from a talent perspective, it's going to be a lot better than it has been in the past. But if you look at that Patriots game, and granted, they didn't have the first team quarterback out there. So a lot of ways it didn't make sense. They didn't look good from a not from an athleticism standpoint. They look great. They didn't look good from a technique standpoint, from an understanding what to do standpoint. And why? Because they need,
hold on. Are you telling me Devonta Smith didn't look good? Because according to our friend Ross Tucker and then our buddy Johnny Goodtimes after the game, it was the greatest route running in the history of the National Football League.
Well, that's what I myself said. It was so bad. We had 3 drops from Devonta Smith, and by the way, only one was official. The second one was taken away because there was a penalty on the play. And the third was a nice back shoulder from Joe Flacco that Devonta didn't get his head around quickly. And that's the perfect example of, look, that's chemistry, but that's also understanding. That's also getting you get a feel for that as you get more reps. And people tried to defend him there. And to Devontae's credit, he said, no, that's my fault. That's completely my fault. Nick Sirianni said it was completely his fault. The only one who didn't was the quarterback, Joe Flacco, because the quarterback's smart and he doesn't want to throw his receiver under the bus. It was his mistake. So anybody who thinks it wasn't, you're chirping up the wrong tree. Look, I think he's going to be a great player. I know you think he's going to be a great player. My only concern with Devonta Smith is what it has been since the start. And we saw him get banged up in training camp twice. Very slight guy. So, you know, how is the durability going to be moving forward? That, I think, is a legitimate concern.
Right. And
I think he's going to get better, but you only get better with live reps, and that's with even the most talented player. And this is where I've made the comparison with Jalen Hurts. Look, Jalen Hurts is a playmaker. He's got a chance to make a lot of splashy plays. But when you're comparing talent, Devonta Smith is a lot more talented at his position than Jalen Hurts is at his position. And you saw the really, really talented guy have some hiccups because he doesn't have a lot of reps under his belt, and he's not ready to play yet because of extenuating circumstances and lack of preparation time and all this coming together. And the assumption is Jalen Hurts is going to show up week 1 in Atlanta with 10 preseason reps, lights out. I think people are going to be disappointed at some of the mistakes they see.
Correct. And I hope you picked up on my cynicism.
No, I know. I did.
Yeah, the hometown announcers made this big deal out of Devonta Smith's 2 catches for 19 yards because he got a little separation between the DBs.
He did.
As you pointed out, he really didn't even play that well. He dropped balls. He didn't get his body turned around quick enough on a back shoulder throw. I would give his performance in that game like a C, if not a C minus. But on those 2 plays, he caught the ball. Yeah. He looked like the greatest separation wide receiver in the history of the National Football League.
And that's a positive. And I said it after the game, but I said, think about how bad this performance was. Not Devonta Smith, the team in general, not just Devonta Smith. We're talking about the traits of a player to make it positive. The traits, not the performance, the traits of the player. Yeah, you could see his route running at times was pretty spectacular, especially for a young player, because let's be honest, most young players hit this league and are not great route runners. So that's one thing I always look at the wide receiver position. If you can run routes as a young player, you're ahead of the curve. So from that standpoint, it's all positive, but you have to go to the bottom line and say, you know, I don't know if it's the water in Philadelphia because Devonta Smith doesn't usually drop the football, but he puts on the Eagles uniform for the first time and he drops the football. It makes no sense. I think he'll get over it. I don't think it's that big of a deal, My point is, my only point is, young players need reps, not only at wide receiver, not only at cornerback, not only everywhere else, but also if you have a young quarterback, they need reps. They have to play. Patrick Mahomes has played this preseason, Jody. Tom Brady played. Now, there's a couple guys, Aaron Rodgers. I use Aaron Rodgers. The Packers put him in mothballs. Now, A, that's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. B, I guarantee you, if Aaron Rodgers did retire and took the Jeopardy job and got the Jeopardy job and was out of the NFL and Jordan Love was healthy, the Packers would be playing Jordan Love in the preseason to get him some stinking reps.
Very true. As you said earlier, the fact that we're going to try and find out about the Eagles all the way up until they kick off for that first game. We're not going to find out that much tonight or it's going to be tomorrow night because I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to take a snap.
I don't think he's going to play.
Nick Sirianni hasn't committed to anything yet, but if you're asking me, I don't think he's going to take a snap, which means we're going to have a preseason with a second-year quarterback who took all of 10 snaps. All right, we'll find out if he is ready to go. And yes, we will watch the health of the Eagles going forward after that first game. You mentioned, John, that you couldn't even fit the Eagles injury report on one tweet. Well, here's one of the reasons why. They're still at 80 guys. So once we cut down to 53, there'll be that fewer guys who are on the injury list because there'll just be that fewer Eagles. When we come back, I want to talk to John about that cut down. How much is tomorrow night's game the deciding factor, the tiebreaker? Because the Eagles have some decisions to make. Not like these decisions are going to make the difference between the Eagles being a 7-win team and a 12-win team. And I don't think it's going to move the needle that much, but you still got to get your 53-man roster down. So we'll talk about that with John McMullen. With me, Jody Mack, on Birds 365 next.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.